On the North Korean leader's execution of his uncle, is the U.S. worried about increased instability there on the peninsula? I mean, we're probably going to see more purging of officials coming up. And also, what does this say about the prospects for any kind of diplomacy or work on the nuclear issue?
Well, as you know, our core policy on North Korea remains unchanged, that we remain focused on the need for North Korea to denuclearize. We're going to increase our discussions with our allies and partners in the region about the internal situation in North Korea. I would say a few points. I'm obviously not going to speculate on internal North Korean decision-making or the motivations of the leadership. I know there's been some questions about that this week. But I think what this is indicative of is really the values of the regime, their low regard for human life, what's probably one of the worst human rights records in the world. I think you saw our statement last night, and I would challenge anyone to characterize it in a way different than what we did. So we're going to keep talking to our allies and partners in the region. Our emphasis going forward will be to continue our collaboration, to deepen our collaboration with our regional allies and our five-party partners as well, because we think this is an incredibly important issue.
You said increase discussions.
Mm-hmm.
Like
deepen, increase.
Like coming up? Like
who are we talking to? What countries, or who on our side, or all of the above?
Both.
I don't have any specific. I can see who on our side. Obviously, we have a range of officials who engage on this issue. We talk to, of course, our regional allies, South Korea and Japan, our five-party partners, obviously including Russia and China as well. So we're going to continue those conversations going forward.
Is it like a stepped-up effort or something?
Just deepen the collaboration and cooperation on this issue. Obviously, we're going to keep evaluating the situation and how best to move forward. But this, I just, again, think underscores the horrific human rights record of the North Korean regime.
Do you, I'm just picking up on Deb's question. When you're talking to Russia, but perhaps particularly China, are you asking them to convey messages to the North Korean leadership that now is not really a time for instability, which purges would suggest that would lead to?
Well, we don't think any time is really a good time for instability. Yeah. Certainly, stability on the Korean Peninsula is very important to us. If you remember, we're talking about Secretary Kerry's trip to Asia. If you remember back months and months ago when he first got here, the trip he made at another time when there had been heightened tensions in the region as well. So I think he has a history of working on this issue. But it really is that we're at a point, and we do talk to the Chinese about this quite a bit, we're on the same page in terms of urging the North Koreans to come back in line with their international obligations. But what we really see is that North Korea has a choice, right, between continuing down a path of isolation and impoverishment for their own people, or meeting its obligations and coming back into the international system. That's certainly what we talk to the Chinese and others about, and the point the Chinese are making with the North Koreans directly as well.
One of the key concerns about that is the provocative act by the military in DPRK to South Koreans, and South Koreans are saying that they are consulting closely with the United States. Do you share this concern with them?
Well, which concern specifically?
The fear of the provocative act from the DPRK to South
Certainly,
Korea.
it's something we're always concerned about. We all constantly talk to the South Koreans, the Japanese, others, the Chinese in the region about it as well. Certainly, it's something we're concerned about, and we would urge the North Koreans not to take provocative acts, not to do so going forward, because it's not in the interest of regional stability.
Do you have any insight you can share with us about what the United States' assessment is of what's actually happening internally in North Korea?
Well, as I said, I'm not sort of going to speculate or do an internal analysis of what's going on inside the North Korean regime. Obviously, this was an incredibly brutal act, as I said last night in the statement, and we'll keep following developments to see where the regime goes from here.
But do you have any indication, perhaps, that he carried out this act because there is some kind of move against him, and move to try and oust him?
Again, I don't want to do that kind of analysis from here. I know it's something that folks on the outside and internally are looking at. I just don't have any new analysis on that for you, but we're going to keep watching it and seeing what happens, certainly. Yes. Well, I think more on North Korea, and then we'll...
When you talk about the brutality and the human rights, how would this affect your sanctions in the future?
Well, I don't have anything new in terms of outline. Obviously, we have an incredibly strong sanctions regime in place on the North Koreans right now. We are very, very concerned about the human rights record there. That's why there are a host of sanctions in place. I don't have anything new to announce, but certainly it's something we're very concerned about.
Jang Song Thaek, was in charge of
economic reform in North Korea. But now he was executed. So, and at the same time, he also was in charge of the negotiation with China. He played an important role before. But how do you analyze North Korean economic reform and openness to the world? Do you
Well,
concern
I think
about
we've
that?
been very clear. I just mentioned the impoverishment of the North Korean people, in part because of decisions the North Korean regime has taken. There are sanctions in place that right now have led to this dire economic situation that we see in North Korea today. And it's up to the North Korean regime to take steps to come back in line with their international obligations and provide the economic space for their people to come out of this horrible situation. Obviously, we haven't seen them do that yet. You asked about China as well. Obviously, China and the regime in Pyongyang have an important relationship. It's an important part of the discussions that we and our partners have with North Korea about the possible paths forward, and that, I think, of course, will continue.
Do you have some movement at the border of China and North Korea after the execution?
Not to my knowledge. I'm happy to check into it.